And I have to be honest with you, the Dems are trending in the wrong direction. And the revolution is not being televised. They're lying to us. So we got to expose the truth because Gil Scott said the revolution will not be televised, but he did not anticipate social media, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. He did not anticipate YouTube channels were influencers because the mainstream media is pretty much programming the people and are setting them up. Because when I look at the local news and look at the national news, and what interesting fact, yesterday I looked at the international news, and not one time I saw 2 or 3 segments referring to the former president Donald Trump. But when it comes to the Democratic Party, I did not see anything about the vice president and her campaign. So when I say the Dems are trending in the wrong direction, it's like if you cannot dominate the news cycle, that's troublesome. And it's pretty much we're being deceived by the powers that be, the mainstream media, because they're literally setting the American people up for, a failure, or setting the American people up to basically go at each other when it comes to some type of civil war type situation, because there's no way that the Harris administration can continue to not dominate the news cycles like Donald Trump. And if you did not know, former President Donald Trump, the Secret Service, or I would say the Department of Justice, DOJ, has submitted or filed another case, the same case that he was exonerated from, and the Supreme Court came down with a unanimous to basically you can't charge a sitting president. So the director of the Department of Justice has filed charges against Donald Trump, and as not a sitting president, as a individual, okay, because he wasn't the president when he lost the election. So they're saying that they're not charging a sitting president who has immunity. They're basically charging a civil servant or a civilian who did lose the 2020 presidential election. And this is just a play because they need to replace the news cycle that Democrats can't hold with negative content against Donald Trump, because their matrix says that if we could convince the people not to vote for us, but to vote against Donald Trump, then that can actually the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party is trending in the wrong direction. The trends are opposite of what the mainstream media is saying to us or trying to show us, because the data is not there. There's data after data showing that the black vote is basically not a block and guaranteed vote for the Democratic Party. That's troublesome. It's showing that youngsters between the ages of 18 and 29 years old is pretty much are nonpartisan independents, and they basically are shifting to the Republican Party. And there's nothing wrong with that, because like I said, here we're nonpartisan. We don't promote either side, but we have to do our due diligence and share information that mainstream media is trying to program. Because if you watch free media, you watch the ABC, NBC, CBS, stay tuned for your next broadcasting. Okay, stay tuned for your next programming. So they're programming you. And pretty much we call it a magic trick, because they're saying and doing things. We, as human beings, we know we have more common sense and we see what we see. So when the Vice President of the United States says that crime is down in the United States, is a bald-faced lie. That is a bald lie. And to prove that fact, if crime was down in the United States, then why are they taking back or putting back on the ballot 47, which was the prop to basically lower crimes to misdemeanors And, you have to have over $1,000 worth of goods or merchandise to be charged as a felony back on the ballot. And then there are also putting on the ballot Proposition 36, which is pretty much something I would say worse than Project 2025, because it's the 1994 crime bill all over mandatory minimums on the same things that they supposed to have exonerated us from. The defund the police and reform the police. They're pretty much, running a play on us. To you, I appreciate y'all this morning. How you doing, Harrison? And we can't sit back on the sidelines and not have these conversations because, like I said, we're adults. We got common sense. We're educated. We know how to process data. We know how to search and find data. So we can't just sit back and let them know. When I say them, I mean the Democratic Party, think or believe that we are supporting what they have going on. It's impossible. And these are things that we're not going to do, because when I look at the data, the party of slavery has always been the Democratic Party. The party of Jim Crow has always been the Democratic Party. The party of segregated South whites only has always been a Democratic Party. And when you look at, they try to convince you and say the party switched, but there's no way you can switch roots. And when I say a root, if you got a citrus tree, you're going to produce citrus. You're not going to produce an apple. You're not going to produce fiber. So if the root is, then the party is wicked. And I got to give them a disclaimer. It's not the people, it's the party. Because when they talk about moving forward, we're not going back. They want to move forward away from the truth. And then when I watch the DNC, and the DNC is over, so the honeymoon is over, the reception party is over, so now we got to get down to business. And soon as the DNC was over, I Googled Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday and today. She's not trending in any direction. I just put in Trump, and he's all over the news cycle. So if you really think of what's going on, we're living in a, high speed internet world, information superhighway. So if you're not trending, if you're not in the media, if you're not doing interviews, then that means out of sight, out of mind. And the truth of it is that some young individuals, they were asked Kamala Harris, and half of them did not know who she was. And that's crazy. But they know who, J. Trump is. And it's crazy that Kamala Harris' father's name is Donald J. Harris. And if you didn't know, you can Google him. He's a renowned Marxist. OK, so when you really think about what's really going on, they think that they could get to us. So when the party wants to move forward and not go back, there are some things in the past that actually can help this country, because back in the day, we had more morals. Back in the day, we promoted togetherness, and we were trying to progressively move to get rid of racism, to come together as one race and as the human race. But for whatever reason, the party that wants to vote against their opposition, they're literally trying to hide the truth and the fact of the matter of who they are and what they are. So I got somebody in the comments already. You vote. Please tell me you don't. Absolutely, I vote. I will be voting hyper local. When I say hyper local, for state, for Congress, for city, for assembly, for judges here in the state of California. But my presidential vote will be a write-in candidate, and that will be my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And if you did not know, he's actually trending because of what's really going on. Now, as a lifer Democrat, as an individual who went to a HBCU, as an individual who grew up in South Central Los Angeles with a public school education, and in my day, it was some experience. And now to see the fact that the party is investing more in criminals, meaning they promote or they put more money into the prison system than they do in education. In the state of California, $14,000 approximately for every public school person. OK, but for every prisoner, you're talking about the sum of approximately $140,000 just to incarcerate an individual. Something's wrong with that picture. So what I'm saying is this year, this election, we're going to put in a protest vote because we never Trump, and then the Democratic Party, if they convince us to vote for them because they have an amazing candidate, then we can vote against their opposition because we will literally be pawns on their chessboard. So we are rising above the situation. And then when you do, good, when you do things bad, they typically try to push you out. OK, but they literally pushed us up because now that we understand, from a religious perspective, the scribes biblically are nothing but Democrats and Republicans. So the mediator was our Lord and Savior Jesus. So we're going to be pushed up, and in the political courtroom, we're literally going to be, the judge in the political courtroom, the mediator between the two rivaling tribes, because we don't want to have to pick and choose. And even children understand this, because a kid really had a conversation with me and we were talking about hood politics, gang banging, Crips and Bloods. And he was saying that the Crips was recruiting him, the Bloods was recruiting him. And he said, Mr. Glover, I don't want to gang bang. And basically it hit my mind like, that's how the political system is, red and blue. And if you are a Democrat, then the Republicans have to be your opposition. If you are a Republican, the Democrats, have to be your opposition and vice versa. But some people really just want to love their neighbor as they love themselves. We don't want to argue. We don't want to debate. We don't want to fight. We want to come together and put some common sense measures on the table. Get the put on the ballot so it can actually be a win-win for everybody. And when I say a win-win for everybody, I really mean that with my heart, because there's, you don't have to be divided. So regardless of who's going to win the presidential election, half of the United States is going to be mad because we're so divided. And if you look at when Trump became president, the Democrats demonized, and when Obama became president, the Republicans was talking about his records, and you had the Tea Party, they were blocking any and everything that they did. So it's kind of crazy how we're living in a world, it is right now and the way it is, and we don't want to participate in it. So I'm saying is we got to do what we have to do. And somebody's in the comments says stop talking about voting. It doesn't change nothing. So the reason, and I appreciate you, the reason that I'm talking about voting, because I'm a part of an operation that's want to not destroy, but put on record what we call democracy. Okay. So I don't want to be a Republican. I don't want to be a Democrat. I want a nonpartisan independent and literally show both sides that they're wrong. Because when it comes to democracy, democracy comes with an assassin's bullet. Democracy killed RFK Jr.'s uncle and his father, who pretty much is running as an independent, who became now he's running with Trump and he's taking his voters with him. Democracy, tried to blow Donald Trump's head off. Democracy signed a crime bill and put the crime bill into law. And in the state of California, blacks are only 6% of the population, or 60% of the prison system. That's democracy. So we have to talk about voting. And if you understand the whole context of the platform that you're on, a better Black America, and Black is an acronym for Black, Asian, Caucasian kinship, meaning we're all blood related, and socioeconomically we're fighting for the same things. Only way we can move forward as a people. And you'll hear Obama say it himself. America great, but there's a long way to go. The only way we can stop it if we just shut down democracy, because democracy is the catalyst, and the democracy is the root of the evils of this country, because America is it's a constitutional republic, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Okay, stop telling people what to do. Let me see here. Stop telling people what to do. Kamala Harris, like I said, you call a YouTuber, okay, and it comes with influence. So if you telling me to stop talking about politics, why don't you go to their platforms, to Kamala Harris, to the DNC, and tell them to stop trying to tell us to vote against their opposition? Why don't you get them to say, to tell us to vote as they put something on the agenda or created a narrative where we can actually be voting for something? Because when I was coming up, we voted for something against something. Okay. Now, I have to go, but subscribe. Glad I ran to your account. We'll definitely be watching in the future. I appreciate you, and iron sharpens iron. So I love the dialogue and keep the questions coming. I appreciate you. Now, let me see. Was on point again. Let me see here. That's like a football player voting on basketball rules. It makes no sense. That's not true. I'm what you call a political commentator. So just imagine when you watch ESPN, Fox Sports, you have commentators commentating on all sports, So think about that. As a response to the question, I can't pronounce your name. It's kind of tough. That's a football player voting on basketball rules. It makes no sense. So as a political commentator, think about it. That's like telling Stephen sport. So look at politics as a sport. So we can talk about everything that's out there because we have the data, we have the research, and we can actually, come up with a solution, because here on the Better Black America TV, we seek solutions and resolutions to create a better world for all. So it's of commentating the politics. So if I was talking about basketball, or if I work for the Laker channel, that's one thing. But I'm pretty much a nonpartisan independent. So right now, the politics is trending right now in politics. And if we're not talking about politics, then we really do not care about our future. And if we're not trying to create change, then that makes us lame, in my personal and humble opinion. So we have to be men that live free, that respect this country, and we want this country to be on the trajectory of go right direction, because if you live long enough, you'll just understand that they're literally playing us. Okay, so I gotta talk about the politics. So when you talk what's trending, and the Dems are trending in the wrong direction, but the media will tell you that, if the voting was today, Kamala Harris will beat Donald Trump, and she's winning, and she's beating Donald Trump on blue states. Okay, but he's destroying her on battleground states, and he's destroying her on the deep red states. So you have 47% of nonpartisan independents that are on the fence still. You have a group of Palestinians, okay, who will not be supporting the Democratic Party. You have young adults between the ages of 18 and 29. The statistics show from 2015 to 2023 that there has been a 35% switch when it comes to political parties, because you have these college educated kids getting out of college and struggling. And, the payoff and all of that. If you do some research right now, Pell Grants is on freeze because they had to find a way to pay for the student loan debt. Now they are freezing loans and freezing the Pell Grant till 2025. So it's kind of like, it's crazy. It's kind of like they're playing us. But when you sit back and really truly understand that the Democrats are trending in the wrong direction. If you did not know, and I'm sure some of you do, that Kennedy have ended his campaign. He was a registered Democrat trying to run as a Democrat, but since there was no primaries, he literally got pushed out or pushed up and created an independent group and was running for president, and he was trending at 3%. Over the weekend, he pretty much ended his campaign and endorsed Donald Trump. And it was at a rally after the DNC. You probably didn't see it, a sold out rally. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came on stage. Trump is promising him a cabinet seat. Trump is promising that if reelected, he will open the books or open the classified documentation to find out what really happened. Uncle, who was killed by by democracy, assassin's bullet, and his father, Robert F. Kennedy Robert F. Kennedy Sr., Bobby Kennedy, that he will open up the classified document to actually show what happened. And RF Jr. is actually coming with votes and supporters because he was trending at 3%. So if you talk about 3% of the United States of America, you're talking about, votes in the millions that will be sliding over to Donald Trump. And he was a Democrat. So you got, people flipping parties. That means it's so bad, and the lies and deceit is so bad. And then if you look at another individual Now, Jade, let me see here. Tim Walz is was from the National Guard or Reserve Army person, National Guard. Tulsi Gabbard was the governor of Hawaii and ran for president as a Democrat. She's the lady that challenged Kamala Harris about her couture record in the primaries and literally booted her, got her, to drop her presidential campaign back in 2019 or 2020 when the primary started for the 2020 election. And Tulsi Gabbard is a Democrat, career, lifelong Democrat, and she was with Donald Trump on Monday, yesterday. And they spoke at the National Guard convention, had the National Guard with them after commemorating the 13 American soldiers that died when the Biden administration pulled out of Afghanistan. And she said that she will be endorsing, and she comes with votes too. So you got two notable Democrats. I'm going to say this again, two notable Democrats and two individuals that have more support and a larger following, more than person in the Democratic Party, and even more than Kamala Harris. You mean to tell me that two Democrats have flipped to the Republican side and has endorsed Donald J. Trump? So now you got to understand flesh and blood. It's powers and principalities. It's not about the man, because if you look at the man, you're talking about a 34-time felon. You're talking about an individual that the world hates, but somehow, some way, places are supporting what he's doing. And the reason they say that are supporting him and his campaign is because he has a record of protecting America. And if you did not know, he talks about the southern border, that the immigrants or illegal immigrants is a threat to America. And it's that popular to where I've heard Kamala Harris on the DNC stage basically says that she's going to build a wall without saying it. And I know it's just talking points, and I know it's just, pandering to the people, but it has basically gone on record. No tax on tips. That was a Donald Trump thing that she pretty much had. No tax on Social Security. She didn't pick that up, but Donald is on record signing a bill to basically reduce pharmacy drugs. And they're saying the same thing. So the Democratic Party, they really are direction. And we really have to have these conversations and know exactly what's going on, because they trying to play a game with us, but they have to understand that we are not our grandparents. We are not uninformed. The social media and Twitter and YouTube, these are individuals and documentation goes out that actually have higher ratings than CNN, MSNBC, these left liberal programs. And I aforementioned earlier that the title of this pretty much podcast is they're trending in the wrong direction. And let me see here, from 18 to 29, the 35% have flipped to Republican, and a large volume of our men, not black men. They didn't say anything about a racial gap, or anything. It was just talking about men. The number one thing when it comes to voting for, not voting against, they put the data up. Overwhelmingly, the number one thing for men to vote for and to want to support, or I would say are concerned about, is the economy. Number one thing for the average male, race not included, just male in general. Okay. The average individual male, the number one concern is the economy. Because if you think about a man, you think about a heterosexual man, he's the leader of his house. Men, we're for everybody. No disrespect to women, but women are for women, because their competition. I could do anything a man could do. So a man's a woman's competition. Somebody of the LGBTQ elemental party, they fight and work for LGBTQ rights and all of that. From a man's perspective, men typically, our job is to protect not only ourselves, but women and children, women and all children. So when it comes to all men, protecting all women and all children, The number one thing that's our concern as a man is the economy. Is the economy. And you comment on that if you think I'm wrong, or I could give you the data. Okay. Now, if you look at the Democratic Party, they looked at the matrix. They see that, and this is why they're trending in the wrong direction. Okay. They're following the science. And some of you know, as dog whistle politics, what the science means. The Democratic Party, they understand that all men, or most men, from a data perspective, is the economy. So instead of focusing on the economy, they're pretty much are sacrificing the men and allowing the men to just do whatever they want to do. If you want to go Republican, go Republican. You want to go with the Jesus Christ right. You want to go with Dr. Cornel West. You want to go with JFK. Well, he's with Trump now. You want with Tulsi Gabbard. She's with Trump now. You want to go with the third party option. We could care less about you men, because for one trend for the Democratic Party, and it's a high volume of women or men that's beta, or men that support women that don't fight for men's rights or rights of all, that's fighting for, the liberal gay rights and all of that. So the number one thing that the Democratic Party is investing in, and you ready for this? Tell you, the number one thing on the Democratic side is abortion. Let that sink in. That's the number one thing on the Democrat is abortion. Now, if that's true, which, I saw this on the Wall Street Journal. If that's true, it's okay. If you are a political party and your number one goal, your number one policy is abortion, something is wrong with that picture. And it's not to have term limits. It's not because of the health of the mother or rape or incest. It's literally no term limit abortions. That's the number one thing on the Democratic side. And that's where they putting all the money in, because the largest, population, or the highest percentile that's going to be voting for the Democratic Party, documented and stated that the number one thing that they have to offer is abortion rights. And if you live in 7 states that have no term limits, your VP, Tim Walz, signed an executive order, for no term limit abortion. And there's cases in the state of Virginia where abortion was, and the child was still breathing, and they just sat back and just let the child just breathe out on the table. Now, if that's moving forward, then that's a problem. And this is why I say they're trending in the wrong direction. Regardless of if abortion is the number one thing, I'm sure all of the women who support abortion has issue with the economy. I'm sure a lot of those women have issues, having to get a second job. I'm sure a lot of them who support the Democratic Party and their number one thing is abortion is affected by inflation. And then when the Democratic Party get out there and say that, they're going to do something about it. Newsflash, Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States of America today. So all of the promise, all that you see, all the goals that you are putting out there to basically pander the voters, you can actually put into right now, because you are an elected official. You are the vice president, have a lame duck president. So if you really want to go on record, why don't you go on record and start doing some of those things right now? Because you're only talking to the choir, or talking to the individuals in the pews of your church, because everything that you've said or everything that you've done is literally almost plagiarizing Donald Trump's campaign from 2016 into now. It's not one thing on the table that you guys could own other than abortion rights. And I believe that it's a good thing for the states to have to deal with it. And I totally agree as a man that there should be term limits, trimester. There should be, for rape and incest, okay, and for the health of the mother. And then, this is how we can actually move forward. But when you say trending in the wrong direction, I have a party that talks about freedom and all of this. They want to be freely to basically execute and kill babies. I truly don't understand. And that word freedom, the word freedom is being taken out of proportion or taken out of context when it comes to the Democratic Party as a whole. The Democratic Party is not the party of freedom. They took that because some chat GPT or Gemini, some search engines done told them that the trend is freedom. Okay. So when it comes to freedom, freedom literally is a group of people who have not been free or liberated here in this country because slavery literally did not end. Okay, if you really understand, when Abraham Lincoln did the Emancipation Proclamation, he put in, called it a Freedmen's Bank and called it the Freedmen's Bill and put away $8 million for the newly freed slaves. But he was assassinated. Andrew Jackson was the Southern Dixiecratic running mate so he can win the Electoral College. He became president, and then they put in the laws. Okay, no involuntary servitude unless criminalized. So that involuntary servitude, because of the criminalization clause, which is the slavery clause in the Constitution, is the act that built the South on free labor. Okay? And then the 94 crime bill that was signed into law by Bill Clinton, that was promoted and written by Joe Biden, that was sold to the Congress, that passed the Senate 96-4, is a criminalization clause. And it's basically mass incarceration as we see it. So you're talking about, 12% of the United States is black, but we're percent of the world's prisons population. Think about that. That is slavery. Okay. So when the Democratic Party talk about freedom, they're literally trying to hijack the word freedom, because freedom is associated with the transatlantic slave. Freedom is with slavery. If you look at the history, let freedom ring. Okay. And that was for not only for civil rights, but for black rights. Okay. You got to be themselves. So when they talk about freedom, you got to understand that the average working class, middle class black person, or the average working class and middle class individual, regardless of race, want to be free from you, because it is the Democratic Party. It's not the people, it's the party. It is the Democratic Party that's stagnating the working class, that's stagnating the middle class, because this is the group of people that literally fund the United States, overwhelmingly. And the statistics and the confirms that. It shows without a shadow of a doubt that the working class and middle class is going to continue doing what they do, and is going to continue to be taxed. When Kamala Harris says that she want to help the middle class, that's literally, we're going to call it a bald-faced lie, because the only way you can help the middle class, because the middle class is going to continue to work. Okay. The upper middle class is going to continue to work. The working class is striving to be a part of the middle class, but there are so many strongholds and hoops to jump through to get to the middle class. Somehow by default, they debunk back to the welfare state, because there's over 1 million individuals. There's over 1 million individuals that was in the work field, in the class, that was pretty much at the top percentile of the working class, that was literally to get to the next level when it comes to, that 75,000 plus. But then we had the pandemic, crime, now we have inflation, and now these individuals that was trying to get to the middle class, that's actually was in the working class, but before they can graduate and step up, they got kicked back down to assistance. Think about that. Public assistance. And then they want your vote, and they want to tell you, don't vote for, your future, vote against our opposition, because our opposition is their democracy, and a threat to their democracy is growing the middle class from the inside out, is growing the working class. And if you look at just in terms of, botany, or just in terms of nature, a tree grows up So why is it that somehow the middle of the tree does not get no love, but the top of the tree gets all the fruits and all of this, and then somehow the bottom, get all the aid? Because if you really want to help the middle class, there should be some type of middle class act that will put tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the bank accounts of the working and the middle class. That's how you grow the middle class. And when you talk about, these lies and deceit, the Harris campaign is talking about in 3 million houses. Okay, all I got to do is say, from a common sense perspective, let's go with the 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, why, at H, and how. Okay, where are you going to build 3 million houses? You don't even have 3 million employed workers building houses. So how's that going to happen? It is a campaign slogan and a campaign strategy because they're hell bent on communicating and talking to individuals that really just don't know. And like Malcolm X would say, we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, and this is why we're running amok. King said, at the Voting Rights Acts of 1965, that we've been delivered into a burning house, because when Democrats say that our ancestors fought for the right to vote, our ancestors fought for the right to vote for who shall choose. And the numbers were saying that we were leaning towards non-Southern, non-racist, KKK, Confederate, Dixiecratic South states. But Lyndon B. Johnson had a bright idea, and it was brilliant. Basically, let's follow the science. Dog whistle right there. Let's follow the science. Let's indoctrinate the woman. Let's put the black woman on with the Women's Live organization. Let's put the black woman on with the women's suffrage movement. Let's her to turn her big, strong, buck sons and turn them into homosexuals. And then let's go ahead and send the men to Vietnam. Let's incarcerate them. Let's bring in the drugs and then bring the crack in. And then, in 1994, we'll put in a crime bill, 3 strikes and you out. And then we'll just move on and we'll change them from a race to an ethnicity. And there's no power in an ethnicity. Okay, because if you want to look at African American, okay, if you look at, and that equals black, but if you look at the ethnicity of the presidential candidate Kamala Harris, ABC News said on the DNC that she would be the first Asian American. That does not equate to African American. And then her birth certificate, I posted a screenshot of her birth certificate, something that was trending back in 2020. And I looked on my Facebook account, and yesterday my Facebook account said that, it was removed. And I looked at it, and her birth certificate, says that she's a Caucasian. That's crazy. My birth certificate says Negro, Negro. My parents says, my sons and daughters says black or African American. And like I said, it's crazy. So we got to figure this thing out. And the only way we can do it is disassociate ourselves with this duopoly, disassociate ourselves with this 2-party system. And that's what I mean when I say duopoly. This 2-party system, it's kind of like the Civil War. Just think of the days of George Washington, or the days of the Civil War, where they would actually coats up in the field, and then approximately 50 to 100 yards, you align the red coat, and then they'll just point and shoot each other. But somehow, some way, the common was in the middle. So there have to be a working class and a middle class vote of the 2-party system, because if the working class and the middle class do not come together and unite and create a coalition and things that will strictly help the working and middle class, then they're going to think that we are down with the scam that they have. Because if you did not know, the working and the middle class is getting destroyed tax wise. You got tax at the pump, the gas station, you got retail tax in the grocery store. Okay. And they tell you, and I could go on, but they're taxing you on your payroll checks. This is why, working and middle class people understand when the rich say, he don't pay up taxes. Okay. Because they don't have any earned income. They don't check the earned income on their taxes, but the working and middle class do. And if you don't have write-offs and incentives and, 6 or 7 different babies, you don't get any back. And if you do, you get a small portion of it. So from a working class and middle class perspective, we got to really have this conversation, because if the working class and this middle class will come together, we can actually And like I said, sometimes when you hear things the first time, it don't come off right. But I'm saying abolish. When they say abolish the IRS, I'm saying we need to support a bill that will abolish payroll taxes. So if you're at work right now on this live, and when you get your check, you see your pay taxes, you see your federal, you see state, and then you got the FICA, and then you have, your benefits and healthcare and all of that. But just imagine if they took off a federal or state, okay, federal or state, but I'm gonna go ahead and say federal, okay, because that's a big one. If they took off your federal taxes, how much money would that in your pocket? How much money would that put in your pocket? Think about that. How much money? Think about that. You will get a 20% raise. Imagine if you are an individual to have a job where you can, you got unlimited overtime. Just imagine that $600 and $700 on a weekly basis that they take from your payroll taxes going into your bank account, so you can actually own your money and do what you need to do. But the IRS takes it off the top. This is no different than sharecropping. So what I'm saying is we need to really have these conversations, and the simple correction is consumption. So how will we pay our taxes? Okay, add a penny or half cent or 2 cents to the dollar. Okay, and that means that everybody taxes when they purchase things, because here in the United States, especially in the state of California, have very high volume of illegal immigrants. Okay, and then you have what we call the street vendors. And the street vendors will go into the grocery store and buy their goods, and then they go on a street corner and they sell their goods and services. Don't pay any business tax. They don't have a license. They don't pay annual taxes to keep their tax ID or their for-profit business. They pretty much just hand over fist, pretty much money under the table. But you, class individuals, you got to get up. You got to take your kids to school, you go to the gas station, pay some taxes, put that gas in there, pay auto insurance and all of that, then go to work 40 plus hours. And then before you even get your cut, the government takes their cut. But why are you being punished for being an honest worker with a social security number? Think about that. So what we're proposing and trying to deliver ourselves from the two-party system and have a working class and a middle class coalition, because this is the group that has never been championed, because you got a working class and middle class person that's a schedule, and basically say, I don't have time to watch politics. I don't even care, whoever wins going to win, because you're going to keep on going to work, you keep on getting that money. You're going to keep on paying that mortgage, that rent, those car notes and all of that. I'm saying is, if we were to have these conversations and to focus specifically on the working and middle class, we can actually change some things. Because when Gavin Newsom put out Measure M, that's $95.5 billion to $95.5 billion earmarked this population to build homeless shelters, to hire and employ the homeless. That is a bill and a measure specifically for the bottom. What if Gavin Newsom said, at $95 billion, I'm going to take $40 billion of that, and I'm going to invest in the working class, and I'm going to basically put it under reparations that has nothing to do with race or creed, and give them a step up, because it is not fair that we invest billions of dollars into people that's at the bottom when we take advantage of the people that's in the middle, that's not really, saying anything, that's in rush hour traffic, that got to go to work every day, got to take the kids to practice, and then you get home at 9 o'clock at night, you got to wash clothes, you got to do homework, you go to bed, you get up and do it all over again. But wouldn't it be something special for you to somehow, look at your bank instead of living check to check? You got a couple commas in there. And the only way that that'll happen, if we would really, come together and deliver ourselves a two-party system and do not be classified as Republicans or Democrats. We will be classified as nonpartisan independents. And on the federal ballot, on the state ballots, there's a box that you could punch in, and it says no party preference. And this is why it is, scary to me, not literally, figuratively, because when they talk about Kamala Harris is doing so well and she's beating Trump, is because the nonpartisan independents, they don't take polls. Okay. They don't even vote in the primary. They show up at the general election. And this is how Donald Trump beat Hillary when Hillary was trending. And now, the news media is putting up, states that are deep, dark blue and says Kamala Harris is beating Trump in these states, in which she's clearly beating Trump in California. OK, but what about the battleground states? What about the 6 to 9 states that can actually flip or go either way? And these are the states that, Trump and JD are coming in, but they're not showing that revolution because, like I said, when the Dems are trending in the wrong direction, they're putting all money in on abortion because the Matrix says that women, the biggest thing that women want to basically protect, the biggest reason they will be voting for the Democratic Party is because of abortion. And then the Republican side is the economy. So the choice is, you want to vote for abortion against the economy? That's where we at right now. That's where we at right now. Okay. And somebody put in there, you look like Kevin Hart, which I'm sure they Hart, but he looked like me because I think I'm a little older than a young brother, and he's about 5'3", and I'm 6'4". So I'm big bro. So what I'm saying is, if y'all got any questions or anything you want me to answer, put it in the comments or in the chat. We're on live right now, but the Democrats are trending in the wrong direction, and we have to, as individuals, as the working class, as the middle class, have to have these conversations because they're investing in abortion and they're investing in the bottom. Okay. So we need to come together. And when I about the taxes, okay, it's about consumption. If you remember in 2016, when the primaries was being ran on the Republican side, and it was like one of them, and Ben Carson was one of them. Ben Carson was one saying he wanted to abolish the IRS. And we can make up the difference in consumption. We can make up the difference in consumption. And this is what we can do, because we should not be supporting the IRS, because the IRS is the catalyst of what we call sharecropping. And if we do abolish the IRS from a win-win perspective, not being a Republican or a Democrat, but being the flip side, which is a theocrat, called the win-win, we'll literally cash out all the IRS agents and put probably $100 billion to the side to earmark just in case the system don't work. And I see you, let me see, JJ Shoddy, Trump 2024, hey, do your thing, because we do understand, as a nonpartisan independent, a registered Democrat, if we do not vote for Kamala Harris and we'll be putting in a third party option, it is a no vote for her, which would actually help the Republican side. And we do understand that, because to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. We're a God-fearing nation and a God-fearing republic, but we're not going to be supporting either side. Say we have to go in and do this because, say, for instance, hypothetically, JJ Shoddy, if we were to Trump and then we wanted to have a conversation about reparations, this is a conversation we won't have. Simply because we will be looked at as just supporting his campaign and what he had on, and there's no trend or no conversations about reparations on the Republican side. But if we were to, when we write in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on election day, when he's not going to show. And he's not going to place, but he's going to show. And we'll see CNN, MSNBC, ABC will be saying, wow, Jesus Christ, for the first time in history, a write-in candidate got, double digits as a third party option. And we're going to have screenshots on our phones and going to pretty much have a party. And whoever wins, whether it's Trump with the Republicans or if it's Harris and the Democrats, will be on record as a coalition, as nonpartisan independents, as nonpartisan Americans that will go in and fight for the rights of human beings, because the Constitution says we the people. So we the people have to identify ourselves. And if you understand, the Bible talks about a remnant, a small group of people that was able to mediate between both sides, that actually the difference makers. That's who become. And this is why we got to do what we got to do, because if we vote for Harris, then they have to assume that we are supporters of abortion. We are supporters of third trimester abortion, no term limits, that we are support of, trans in elementary school. We're supporters of moving away from America's history. We're supporters of not going back and seeing what what happened in the past, or how wrong it was in the past, to correct it. We'll be just believing to the point that we are supporters of everything that the Democratic Party has to offer. When they take the word freedom, I think of Dr. King, let freedom ring. Somehow their freedom means freedom with a woman to choose to do what she wants to do with her body. But as a nonpartisan independent say, let's have freedom, and let's make sure that there's no unwantednesses by our teenagers or women, a contraceptive perspective. So we don't even have to have a conversation about aborting babies, because at the end of the day, you're literally killing babies. That's a fact. And for the Democrats to come out with that poll and double down on it, because the largest volume of voters that say they will be supporting the Democratic Party, their issue is voting for abortion, and they will be voting against the economy, because the Republican side is pretty much in the same direction, because Republicans, the highest tally, or the highest percentile on the Republican side that they will be voting for is the economy. It has nothing to do with Trump. Okay. It's not voting for Trump. It's voting for the economy. So this election is going to be abortion versus the economy, because the Democrats really don't understand, sometimes you're too early and sometimes you're too late. So we get an opportunity to sit back and listen to their strategies. We get an opportunity to sit back and hear what they got going on. And as individuals, we get a chance to show them that some defectors, meaning there's some individuals with talent that did not bite the apple or take the bait to go work for you and promote you. But now we get an opportunity to promote righteousness. So when they talk about freedom and, all of these things, at the end of the day, in a nutshell, the Democratic Party is trying to get you to vote not against Donald Trump, but against the economy. And the only thing that they have for you to vote for is abortion. So hit the notification. I'll be up video. I watched a video with the Wall Street Journal and did a study, and they pretty much talked about how men are trending, young men are leaving the Democratic Party from a 35 percentile from 2016 to 2023. 35% of Democratic men have flipped to the Republican side from the ages of 18 to 29. And the reason why, of being ostracized, being ousted, the party is focusing and double downing on the woman. And this is what we, in dog whistle politics, when we say the science, it's the science of Willie Lynch. It's the Willie Lynch. And when you get the woman, you can actually do anything you want to do with her. And then based on her history, based on her hurt, based on her trauma, she will go to war with her brother, her father, and her husband, because what she's been through, because a woman will only fight for her best interest. But as a man and as a believer of God, we have to fight. And as a man, I'm speaking for myself and like-minded individuals like myself, we have to fight for all people. That's man, woman, and the children. Okay. That's what we have to do. And our best interest is the women and the children, because the women and the children are spiritually connected to us. So we cannot, turn our back on, who we are as individuals. We cannot turn our back on our morals. And if you look, from a biblical perspective, the oddball, the third was Satan. It was God, Adam, Eve, but somehow he got into Eve's ear, and then Eve convinced Adam to make the mistake and the sin. And it's in the word. But once you realize that and you want to fix it, so we as born again new Adams, we are going back to God. We are getting back to his ways, and we must convince Eve to leave the serpent alone. But somehow, some way, this presidential election, it seems like she is the blood sacrifice for righteousness. So not the lambs, it's not killing a goat or anything like that. The literally woman. And if she realizes it, she can actually flip the script immediately. You know, she could flip the script right now. But we don't think that she's going to do that. But she is the sacrificial lamb, and let the chips fall. Because if the Democratic Party, the only thing record, and I'll debate this and I'll communicate and talk to anybody about this, the only thing that they have for you to vote for, and that's for abortion. Vote for abortion, you're voting against the economy. So with that being said, the Dems are trending in the wrong direction. And where are we going to go as a people? But this election is heating up, and we're going to sit back and communicate because, God's people shall not perish due to the lack of knowledge. And we really got to understand what's really going on as a people. And there's no way we can, sit back and not participate and not communicate, because the average wants us to stop talking about politics. And that's demonic to me, because when they say, oh, you don't mix church and politics. No, that's a lie. That theology got to be corrected, because the Bible is a book of politics that contains religion. And when you study the gospel of Jesus Christ, that is the only example for us to follow. And this is how they are able to keep the scam going all of these years, because they don't want you to focus on Christ. Because when he said, my people who are called by my name, and they want you to focus on any and everybody else but Christ. And when you focus on everybody but Christ, you are basically focusing on sinners. And when Christ walked on this planet and they asked him, about the scribes and Pharisees, he said, I didn't come to change the scribes or the Pharisees. I didn't come to change today's modern Republicans and Democrats. So if he didn't come to change the scribes or the Pharisees, then it's not our job to change the modern day Republican and Democrat. And his job, he said, he came to fulfill. So on election day, I'm asking you who are not a scribe or Pharisees to fill name in as the president. And that will be who we are moving forward. And we will fight for the rights of all human beings on this planet. With that being said, beautiful day. Today is the 20th. I'll be tapping in, hit those notification, subscribe, because like I said, we're going to continue to go up. With that being said, man, you have a great day. And it's the truth. Them in the wrong direction. And I finally found out what they want you to vote for. And they want you to vote for abortion and against the economy. The choice is yours. Have a great day.